That's a great reminder. Before we begin, if everyone in the audience could turn off their electronic devices or switch to airplane mode so that we can help maintain a respectful, safe, and civil forum space without anyone being jarred by phones ringing. Welcome to the House District 11 Candidate Forum, sponsored by Longmont Public Media and the League of Women Voters of Boulder County. My name is Faith Halverson Ramos, and I am pleased to serve as moderator for today's forum. The Colorado House of Representatives is the lower house of the Colorado General Assembly. The House is composed of 65 members from an equal number of constituent districts, with each district having a population of about 88,000 people. Representatives are elected to 2-year terms and are limited to 4 consecutive terms in office, but can run again after a 4-year respite. The legislative session begins no later than the second Wednesday in January and lasts up to 120 calendar days. House District 11 includes most of Longmont, east of 75th Street, and north to Highway 66, west of Pace Street, south to Highway 119, then west to County Line Road. The format for today's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. We will then begin with questions that have been both submitted electronically online to the League and submitted by the audience. Audience members may submit questions by writing them on index cards available from our volunteers. Questions will be reviewed by our volunteer screeners for clarity, and we may combine several similar questions into one question on that topic. We will try to ask the candidates as many questions as time permits, and I urge you to submit questions early in the forum. For most questions, each candidate will have up to 1 minute to answer. However, I may expand the time to answer depending on the question. Longmont Public Media is broadcasting the forum live on cable system channels 8 and 16 and on Facebook, YouTube, Longmont Public Media's website, and Longmont Public Media's Roku TV app for smart TVs. The forums will also be made available for later viewing at the League of Women Voters of Boulder County website and at the League of Women Voters Boulder County YouTube channel. Please refrain from clapping, booing, or otherwise showing your approval or disapproval of any response. Please respect the candidates and honor the dignity of democracy. Disruptions will only delay the forum. So, now to the opening statements and questions. For the opening statements, we will begin with candidate McCormick.
Thank you, Faith, and thank you to the League for hosting this and all the other forums across our state. Your participation in our democratic system is really important. I am Karen McCormick. I am presently the state representative for House District 11 and have just finished my 2nd term and proud to be the representative down in Denver for our city. I am a veterinarian by trade. I am a mom of 3 adult kids who I'm extremely proud of, and am just very focused on making sure that we continue to listen to the people of our district, all the issues that come before our voters and our citizens and our residents, and making sure that we have all the tools that we need to address the issues that we have and come up with creative solutions to those issues. So I would be very honored to continue in this job and continue fighting for Longmont next session.
And now candidate Reeves.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum, and also to Longmont Public Media, and I really appreciate you hosting this in person. I'm Kathy Reeves, as introduced, and I'm very happy to be here this morning. I'd like to let you know I'm a Colorado native. Both my parents are immigrants, my dad from Canada, my mother from Hungary, and they both became naturalized citizens. I worked in information technology at Hewlett-Packard and then later at State Farm Insurance. I also was a missionary, and I've volunteered in several places, and my approach will be limited government, individual liberties, and also a free market economy.
Thank you. For the first question, we will start with candidate Reeves. And this question is, what are your top priorities for the next legislative session, and what do you think is the single most important issue for this district?
Okay, the economy and also crime. We need to lower the rates of crime. But the single most important issue is the cost of living, and we need to see less government intervention. We need to realize that for the last 6 years, we've had a Democrat governor, and in the House, the majority, and also the majority in the Senate. And 705 bills were introduced during the 4 months of the session last year. 525 of those were passed into law. And I think that's really a lot for Coloradans to keep up with. So there are lots of restrictions. I'd like to just point out a few here. There was a building act that forced a $387,000 average upgrade for buildings, and this had to do, of course, with clean energy.
Thank you. I'm sorry, the minute is up.
Oh, a minute's up, okay. I didn't see you, sorry.
Okay, my top priority, if I were to pick one, is to continue to work on healthcare costs, and we have worked hard the last 2 sessions to bring forth a study with the School of Public Health to look at how we might save costs across our state with a single channel payment system with privately delivered healthcare. So I will be working on that. Most important issue for HD11 actually depends on who you talk to and where you are in our city, from housing costs to mitigating effects of climate change and preparing for more severe climate weather events, healthcare, mental health care, access and affordability, public education support, wages. There are a lot of issues that concern our citizens, and so I think it's important to keep that in mind, that there's not a singular issue across our city that is the most important for everyone.
Thank you. Great. Here's a question from the audience, and we'll begin with candidate McCormick. What is your plan to represent constituents who did not vote for you in the coming election?
Thank you. I love this question. When you become a representative, you are the representative for the whole region. And in my profession as a veterinarian, one of the most important skills that you have is to be a good listener. And after 40 years of being a veterinarian and a mom, you become a really good listener, and it's a skill set that plays well in government. If you're not willing to listen to viewpoints that are different than yours, you may not be able to craft the best policy going forward. So even if you have a good idea that's going into a bill, listening to folks that might be in opposition to your policy may actually make your policy better, more workable, more implementable. And so I will continue to do what I've done for decades and make sure that my door is always open. I'm always ready to listen to folks in our community.
Thank you. Candidate Reeves.
Yes, I have to agree. Listening to both sides is really important. As I've been out knocking on doors and talking with people and at community events, there are a wide variety of concerns. We need to listen and take both sides of each story into account and have wisdom in how we do these things. I think as a former missionary and as a volunteer educator and as a client advocate, I've had lots of opportunity to listen to people and to relate to their situations and to help them through those different situations, and I believe that will prepare me. Also in making friendships with everyone that we work with in the legislature and considering all the points of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, what measures would you support for Colorado to deal with the climate crisis and to work toward climate resilience? And we'll start with you, Candidate Reeves.
Okay. So rather than get into how much of a crisis climate might be, climate does ebb and flow for sure, but I would like to point out some of the things that have been done that have been actually detrimental as we get too overly excited about it. There's legislation that was passed to give incentives for EVs and for electric bikes, and I don't think that's necessarily the low-income people that are going to be able to take advantage of those incentives. Oil and gas are very cleanly produced here. Solar might sound very clean, but if it's produced with minerals that are mined in another country, perhaps with slave labor, there's so much to consider. Not so easy to recycle those. We've got, with wind, of course, it's only when the wind's blowing. We need to consider all aspects of how we're going to address this issue.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick.
Thank you for the question. And we do know that there are quite a few inputs that have caused and triggered climate change over the decades, and that humans are responsible for a lot of that. And it's important that we continue to focus on what we as humans can continue to do to mitigate those effects. And growing our renewable energy economy is one step in that. I'm really excited about the opportunity for more agrivoltaics to happen across our state. That's the utilization of land for both growing food and supplying energy with solar panels on agricultural land, exploring other alternatives like geothermal and hydro, and making it easier for local governments, as we did last year in some of our bills, to implement those policies, growing new jobs through battery storage technologies. There's a whole lot we can do to prepare for a hotter and drier climate, and I'm excited about working on those policies.
Thank you. Our next question, do improvements need to be made through legislative action to improve mental and behavioral health support and care? And what are the most important actions that can be taken to the state's mental and behavioral health care? And we'll start with you, Candidate McCormick.
Okay, got it. So yes, there are still quite a few improvements that can be done in this space. First of all, we have to continue to make sure that mental health care and access works to become on parity with physical health care. We're not there yet. And treating the ailments of the body separate from the aliens of the aliens, that's not the word I want, ailments of the mind, we need to make sure that we're treating the whole body, and access to that care and affordability of that care is here in our state. We need to continue to make sure that providers are reimbursed appropriately, especially in the mental health space, and build the pipeline of providers, especially in areas that are underserved in our rural communities. It's really a crisis of mental health care in our rural communities. And so I'm also excited to work on things that work towards that parity in healthcare.
Thank you. And Candidate Reeves.
This is something where I disagree. I don't believe the state has the responsibility in this area. It should be done more locally, and also it's a cultural issue. Families and churches and nonprofits are very incentivized to be involved, and if we could encourage more of that sector. And we do actually have the in-between, we have Harvest Farm, we have the Recovery Cafe, there's a lot in Longmont, and we do have some governmental with the R Center and so on. But I really see that the local level, the local communities can take a look at what is needed in their community and can sort this out. And we as loving and caring citizens can do more on our own without necessarily having the government involved.
Thank you. We have gotten a few more questions from the audience, so I will shift to those. So one of the questions that we received is, what is your solution to the homeless population in Longmont? And we'll start with candidate Reeves.
This kind of dovetails onto the last question because, you know, as individuals, as Christians, we have talked with homeless. We've even taken some into our home at certain times. You know, people and especially, I won't say just Christians, but, you know, people of faith really do have a certain amount of responsibility towards their fellow man. And yes, again, the local nonprofits and so on, and those work very well. I think that more and more there are people that are giving, you know, people are giving to nonprofits, and it's really quite effective, and we've seen, of course, volunteer programs for behavioral health, you know, help with that as well.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick.
Thank you. This issue is a complex issue, and we really do need to look at all the factors that are involved. It's important to remember that state resources are part of the funding mechanism for all the incredible nonprofits that are in our community that are helping. So it's a matter of directing your resources where your values lie. And at the state level, that's an important piece of this conversation, is that some municipalities and counties need more help than others because of those resources that they can shift to those nonprofits working locally to help the homeless population. But it's also important to remember that our people that living on the streets that may have substance use disorders need wraparound services to really get them back on their feet, get the medical care that they need so that they can get back into society and live a full life. So it's that partnership with the state and local governments that we need to remember.
Thank you. The next question kind of ties into ballot measure number 79 that is on the ballot this year. And so we'll begin with candidate McCormick. What is your stance on women's health issues, especially abortion rights?
Well, this is one, as a medical professional, I understand that pregnancy is a medical condition, and there are a trillion things that have to go right in any pregnancy for you to have a healthy baby at the end of that pregnancy. And what Proposition 89 will do is codify into our Constitution what is already the law of our state. And it protects people that are pregnant to make those healthcare decisions from the beginning all the way to the end of their pregnancy on their own without the government being in the exam room with them and their doctor. I think it's very dangerous if we start to take those decisions away from an individual and that medical professional that they are consulting with. And I am fully in favor of supporting Proposition 89. And plan to vote yes on that proposition.
Thank you. Candidate Reeves.
Okay, Proposition 89, also known as Amendment 79, is an effort to codify into our Constitution abortion all the way up through the 9th month. Not only that, but people who do or don't agree will be forced to pay for these abortions through tax dollars. I think that our RHEA bill that we already have, Reproductive Health Equity Act, is really concerning abortion mainly, and also contraceptives, right to use or refuse contraceptives. A pregnant individual has a fundamental right, okay, to continue pregnancy or end the pregnancy, but that stated that way, that could be a child. A 12 or 13-year-old could be a pregnant individual, and as it is, they could go around the advice of their parents, who would be the grandparents of that child. And then, of course, it takes away the rights of the unborn baby, saying that they have no rights under the law. So we need to peel back what's already in place, not codify into the Constitution something that's dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question that we have is, are you concerned that Jennifer Parenti, Representative Parenti, and 2 other representatives have decided not to return to the House? And we'll start with you, Candidate Reeves.
Yes, I've heard of this, and I've even seen some video of current reps who are feeling very pressured in their work, and they're really not feeling that they can do what they went there to do. And this isn't just lobbyists, this is other branches of government coming in and trying to say that this is how you must vote, basically, or you don't speak out on this because it won't go well with you, or you won't get funding. That's just wrong. We need to have a free and fair government, and it's very concerning, even these Democrat reps deciding not to run again.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick.
Thank you for this question, and I would say that each of those individuals have their own individual reasons, and I've had personal conversations with them. This job takes a lot. It takes a lot of attention, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort on building relationships. And sometimes, as in life, some particular jobs aren't a good fit for some folks. I've seen that at my own small business when I was hiring folks. And so the environment down at the Capitol is not a toxic environment. We are not forced to vote in a certain way. There are important conversations that need to be had on each and every bill. And if you're doing your work properly and you're able to listen, you still have the autonomy to still vote your conscience, vote your district, vote your values. And but I agree, it's a hard job, and there are going to be people that decide not to continue doing it for their own reasons.
Thank you. This next question, I'd like to return back to some of the ballot measures on our ballots this year. What is your position on ballot measure number 80 that would create a constitutional right to school choice and equal opportunity for K through 12 children? In effect, this measure would serve as a constitutional right, requiring that the legislature to allocate public funds for private schools and homeschooling. And Candidate McCormick, we'll start with you.
Thank you for this question. We don't need this proposition. Parents already have school choice. They already have the decision-making authority to send their kids to whatever school they choose or to homeschool. And so the danger of this proposition, which I oppose, is that it is a way for us to siphon money out of the public school funding system and into private or parochial schools. And there's an issue with that because many of those schools are not required to live up to the same standards, the same accountability as our public school systems. And we need to do everything we can to make sure that our public schools are funded fully and continue to be so in the future. And so this is not a good idea. It will hurt our kids. It will hurt our educators. It'll hurt our public school systems. And I am in strong opposition of Proposition 80.
Thank you. Candidate Reeves.
While I'm a strong proponent of school choice, I think that this particular proposition has a problem with wording. They really could have done a better job. It does say in one line that parents have the authority to direct the education of their children, which of course is true. But in other parts, it says that children may choose whatever school they would like. And it's putting authority into children's hands, which eventually, should that parent line be stricken, could take that authority away from parents. So I can't vote for this at this time. I'd like to see one where there is, and actually there's not funding in this, it's just a thought that maybe there would be funding later. Something like a tax break for homeschoolers or private school children, so they're not paying as much into the budget for public schools, at least during the time where their children are in a private or alternative school. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've received a few questions about housing and the cost of housing. So our next question would be, or is, how would you address the ever-escalating cost of housing in Colorado? Should the state play a role in providing funding for affordable housing? If so, what sources should be tapped to fund affordable housing? And we'll begin with you, Candidate Reeves.
Once again, I am for less government and less government intervention. It's possible that we could have a shortfall of 100 to 225,000 homes, which is really a terrible situation to be in. But let's be aware that the average cost of a home now is $589,000, and $140,000 of that is government regulation. So we really need to get out of the way, let people thrive. If people want to have ADUs attached to their homes, then let them do that. But I think too much force towards high density, our infrastructure isn't ready for it, and we really need to be cautioned about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick.
Thank you. Yes, our housing issues are a big problem here in Longmont as well as across our state. There isn't just one solution. I'm happy that the people of Colorado voted for Proposition 123 a year or so ago, which will create a funding source for local governments to build affordable housing. We do need to make sure that we are removing barriers in certain ordinances, that those are eased, that we help innovative ideas for land use codes. That's a place where state government has been helpful in the last couple of years. Looking at the cost drivers to the expense behind building a home for our construction costs, our liability concerns in those construction costs, and incentivizing municipalities and counties to use their land to build affordable housing. And we are doing some great work and have been in the last couple of years, and I'm anxious to see a lot of those policies come into fruition here in Longmont.
Thank you. We've received a few questions about immigration, and so the next question is, should the influx of migrants into Colorado, especially to the Denver area, be aided at the state level rather than depleting the funds of the cities bearing the brunt of their costs? If you say yes, how is that best handled and funded? And we'll start with you, Candidate McCormick.
Yes, and I actually like to call the migrant population that are coming into our state and our nation as potential new immigrants. People arriving from horrible situations are seeking asylum for the very most part, and the cities and counties that are receiving these folks shouldn't bear the brunt of the total cost all on their own. So the state should play a role, as well as partnering with the federal government for those funding mechanisms. We need resources to support the nonprofits that are working in these local areas, helping these people. We must help people. And this is an important issue for us to continue to look at. How do we best help people, get them on their feet, get them independent, and move them into helping out their local communities wherever they end up.
Thank you. Candidate Reeves.
Compassion for people is important, of course, but what about the compassion for the people who already live here? What about the people who have paid into Social Security and now that money might be used for illegal immigrants? I don't agree that most of them are seeking asylum. I think this is a political move, opening our border. And of the 20 million that have come, well, much more than that now, across our border, millions have committed crimes. And sometimes, you know, even when it's serious crime like murder, and of course we know about all the fentanyl deaths and we know about the child trafficking, they're let right back out on the streets. So we have a problem. We need to help our police, help our judiciary to handle this better, and not congratulate people for coming and breaking the law, coming into our country. They passed an act that costs $2.5 million just to welcome people who have entered illegally. They need to come in the right way.
Thank you. So dovetailing on that, a question from the audience is, what is your position on allowing Longmont to become a sanctuary city?
That's a terrible idea. In Denver, when they said they would be a sanctuary city, lo and behold, quickly they asked the state legislature for $180 million because they found their budget coming up short because of trying to provide all these services for people who very often don't know the language, and of course they can't work because they're here illegally, and of course they're making ways that that will happen. But this is a huge problem, and that's a very bad idea. 3 cities near Denver are already suing them for sending the illegals that they said they wanted, but now they can't deal with it. And yes, we need to love people, but they need to come to our country, make the application, and come and provide, be an effective member of our society and be helpful and want to become an American. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick.
So first, I think it's important that people understand how they are personally defining sanctuary city. So when this terminology first came on board, it had reference to the fact that the Federal Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement Agency, which is a federal agency, and our local public safety agencies and sheriff's departments have different jobs to do. And it was important at the time to make sure that one set of agency was not crossing over into another agency's job description. And that's how this all, from my understanding, actually came to be a discussion. And so I agree that our law enforcement agencies, whether federal, local, or countywide, do need to stay within the purview of their job description and work together within the law to do what they need to do and not cross over into somebody else's jurisdiction.
Thank you. So as we've been talking about taking care of people and compassion, the next question I have is, what are the most important legislative actions needed to better support children and families in Colorado? Should the state play a role in providing all Coloradans with access to basic needs, including food, housing, and health care? And Candidate McCormick, we'll begin with you.
Yes, I do think that the state plays a role, and we have played a role in the past and continue to do so. Part of the roles that we play are important investments in early childhood education. The state has done a really good job with that and will continue. When we invest in early childhood education, we help our kids get a good start towards achieving their highest and best goals. Investing in our mental health care system, as I mentioned earlier, across our state, that goes for children and families as well. Investing in innovative solutions to child care costs and solutions is also very important, because if we help our families with child care costs and different ways to help with their child care situations, we invest in our economy and we help everything grow. So, and also the fact that we extended the family affordability tax credit, helping to bring families and kids out of poverty, is also a crucial thing that we did.
Thank you. Candidate Reeves.
We need to protect our children in schools. We need to make life affordable, but this is not by spending money at the state level. We can create an environment where businesses thrive. With our free market economy, everyone will be doing better. We also need to see to it that children are not indoctrinated in schools, but they're actually taught reading, writing, math, and science. Our English and math scores are placing us 34th place worldwide. So the focus has not been on educating our youngsters. And so a lot of it is really with philosophy, not throwing more money at the situation, and education needs to be decided at the county or community level rather than at the state level.
Thank you. We've received some questions from the audience regarding guns and the Second Amendment. And so our next question will be, many bills have been proposed to limit access to guns over the last 2 sessions. Does the legislature need to do more to limit access to guns? And we'll begin with you, Candidate Reeves.
I think they've forgotten we have a Second Amendment. The United States Constitution comes over the laws of the state, and there was a reason that our founding fathers put that Second Amendment in there, and that is people need to be free to defend themselves. They need to be able to defend their children, their family, their neighbors, and and of course, no one has taken all the guns away yet, but step by step, little by little, they are eroding our Second Amendment rights. And I can't be in favor of this. Also, I'd like to point out that these gun-free zones are actually more dangerous because criminals don't care that it's a gun-free zone. They'll just go right in. And of course, these school shootings, they've gone right in. Someone needed to be there on staff who had a weapon and could protect those children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate McCormick.
Yes. First of all, I want to say I have not forgotten the Second Amendment. I could recite it right now, but I don't want to use up my whole minute. So what's important to look at is that this is a systemic issue and that gun violence is truly a public health matter. And there are a lot of things that can be done and have been done in our state. We've become a model for addressing gun violence issues by making sure that access to firearms for people that are unsafe to themselves or others is restricted, and that we make sure that we're locking up our firearms, that we instituted a 3-day waiting period so people don't make rash decisions to go out and buy a firearm and hurt themselves or others. There are ways that we can address this, and making sure that we're looking at the data and following solutions that are data-driven are important. There's no intention of taking away our Second Amendment or taking away responsible gun owners' rights at all.
Thank you. Our next question. Do you think the legislature has any role in legislating the process or parameters for removing books from schools and public libraries? Removal requests seem to aim at harming BIPOC and LGBTQ+ communities. And Candidate McCormick, will begin with you.
Thank you for that. Not only do they seem to be aimed at those communities, they are aimed at those communities. And we have a state board of education, which are elected leaders across our state who have a role in the curricula and in books. And local school boards also have a role in determining what is appropriate for each age group. But also, I do trust parents to make sure that they know what their kids are reading. Banning access to books in certain categories or outright that you happen to disagree with or that offer a different viewpoint stifles intellectual inquiry. It's anti-democratic. Our public schools need to make sure that they have the offering that is age group appropriate for each group. I see the book banning is honestly anti-freedom, and that's not the America that I love, and do not support the banning of books.
Thank you. Candidate Reeves.
We've always had in legislation the concept of time, place, and manner of restrictions. We need to consider the age of these children. I mean, of course, as a general rule, we don't want to restrict freedom of speech or the press or any of that. But children have always had a different threshold. We can't sexualize our children, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual sex. It does not need to be in graphic form in school libraries. In the public library, yes, people do have the opportunity with their parents to make appropriate choices. But at school, there's free reading time. They can go to the library and choose whatever they want. High school age kids are going to dive right into every sexual book they can find. We need to be sensible about this, and we need to do what is appropriate and what is necessary for a good education for children.
Thank you. And now, here's our last question for the forum. If elected, how will you work with the other party so you truly represent the people? And Candidate Reeves, will begin with you.
Well, I think it's always helpful to hear both sides of a story, weigh the outcomes, look at everything. So I wouldn't be closed off from working with members of the other party, but would welcome discussion. I would say that if you have an intent, of course, you've already talked to your citizenry and you know that you need to make a change, enact a law or add an amendment to something, and you know the other side, you can discuss, but you can't defy the faith that your people have in you. You've got to be fair on both sides. So I will be a good listener, and I would just like to say that Longmont is filled with people who really do care about people, care about each other. Many of you have faith in God, and I would just ask that you please vote your values.
Thank you. Candidate McCormick.
Thank you for that, and I would encourage people to look what I've done the last 4 years. As chair of the House Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources Committee, we have an incredible camaraderie with Republicans and Democrats, not only in the House, but in the Senate. Many of the bills that we pass through my committee are unanimous. We find common ground across a range of issues, and it's really heartening to me when that happens. And we hear that often. Many of the bills that do come through that are signed by the governor certainly may only have 1, 2, or 5 folks from the other side that participate in that bill, but it just shows you that there's common ground to be found. I'm always looking for it, and so I will continue to do that moving forward and would love to serve another term for you all, the voters of Longmont.
Thank you. On behalf of the League and Longmont Public Media, I would like to thank our candidates not only for their participation in today's forum, but also for their participation in the democratic process. Running for office and serving as an elected official is hard work. I also want to thank the Longmont Museum for providing us with this venue to hold today's forum. Thank you to our forum volunteers for their essential help. A huge thank you to our 2024 Platinum Level election sponsors, Premier Members Credit Union and Wana Brands. If you are interested in becoming an election sponsor, please visit the League's website at lwvbc.org. And finally, thanks to the forum audience, both here or viewing on TV or online. It's up to all of us to make sure we respect and work to protect our democratic processes. We encourage everyone to get out and vote. For more information about the upcoming election and the candidates, please go to the League's voter information site, vote411.org. And remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you for coming. As we adjourn the candidate forum, please join me in a big round of applause for all of our candidates.